I'm Joe Dante, and I'm here with Dee Wallace.
Stone.
Stone, excuse me. She was Dee Wallace once. Dee Wallace Stone, Chris Stone, and Bob Picardo, Robert Picardo in the credits. And we're talking apparently about the Howling, which has now this exciting logo, which was originally done for the trailer, but Mike Fennell, being a very economical producer, he decided to use it in the picture for free.
The tearing sound of when the letters go up is actually Mike's underwear.
That's not nice.
I didn't think he wore
that's
any.
Not kind of,
No, I mean old underwear.
you're talking over your credit.
I just feel as if everything's out of my control.
Oh, Mr. E.
This ain't really on the beast at all.
Got an animal head right there.
You know what did it?
Was it?
We say it's the only way to look terrific.
Some called shapeshifters.
He understands all about the gift.
I was originally on a picture called, I was working on a movie called Jaws 3 People Nothing at Universal, and there was a lot of contention about whether the picture was going to get made or not, and this other director fell out of this werewolf movie at a certain point, and I was asked if I would step in.
What?
Now with this build-up, the public is dying to see her.
Killings were on a full moon.
It's real.
That's just my Resident Evil. True push in to a single of the doctor.
Why must he kill? Best-selling behavioral expert Dr. George Wagner explains on a special edition of Perspective.
Can you take it out?
I saw pictures just like we saw in Israel.
We started shooting it, it was a very brief shoot, it was like 28 days or something like that, and I remember very little of it, so you're going to be out of luck trying to get me to remember anything that happens. And Patrick McNee, we always had in mind for the lead. He's the only person that we actually saw. Here's Bob Picardo, and you can tell him what you're doing, Bob.
I don't remember actually what I was thinking at that point.
But the idea that Bob would watch the lead character on TV, and he would get very excited back at home in his little hovel that he lives in. We couldn't afford a bigger place, so he lived in a hovel.
There's a good reason for this. Man is a combination of the learned and the instinctive, of the sophisticated.
This was shot at Channel 58 in Huntington Beach, I think, or KCE or something like that. It was very small station, and we shot a great deal of the movie actually in this very, very tiny studio. And due to some clever art direction, managed to make it look a little bigger than it was. This was shot on Western Avenue.
Oh, geez.
My first Steadicam shot, by the way.
I got a lot of offers that night.
There was in the script there was a lot more of this material that we certainly shot more than we used. I wish I could remember what was in it, because I haven't read the script recently.
Jesus. Karen see this?
Yeah.
She never even mentioned seeing you.
You really had a Steadicam for that?
Yeah, I did. Now those are actual. This is actual coroner footage of real dead bodies, because we couldn't afford to stage our own. And this was shot on Western Avenue. The smiley face thing, I believe, was John Sayles' idea. It was a particularly odious trend at the time, and he was kind of getting into it.
And those are my clothes, Joe.
Are they your clothes?
Those are my clothes, and that was your sweater you had on, Christopher.
Yeah.
Well,
That was our
you mean
budget.
we didn't have doubles? It's a good thing we didn't get them dirty.
I remember the schedule where we worked 3 days, and
Oh,
then we worked
jeez.
3 nights. And I mean, we didn't know day from night.
Our dog was running into the walls, no kidding.
We used to hang blankets over the windows to keep the light
Yeah.
out for when we had to sleep
Well,
during the day.
that's pictures.
Yeah.
This is Ken Toby driving around parts of Western Avenue that don't exist anymore.
Contact lost with Fox 1, vicinity Western and DeLongpre. Report any...
They kept getting, people kept running up to them asking them to come and help with robberies and things, because I guess they look pretty real.
But this was on Western Avenue.
This is on Western Avenue. We were towing them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is
Jim McCrell, who I guess was a game show host.
Yeah, he was very good.
And he actually, I've used him as this character, Lou Landers, before or after in other pictures. I used him in Gremlins, and he sort of reoccurs in my oeuvre, so to speak. And he's very good in this part.
Yeah, he was funny.
Not much else to say about this bathroom, except that it was at the TV station, wasn't it? It's a real bathroom with a real mirror. I remember that. I guess should mention that there are a lot of characters in this picture named after people who've directed werewolf movies. And Lou Landers having directed a picture called Return of the Vampire that had werewolf in it. And Chris is playing a character which in the script was named Roy Neal, because he was supposed to be based on Roy William Neal, who directed Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. But it turned out there was a weatherman named Roy Neal who wouldn't let us use his name. So after we had rehearsed and planned to shoot the whole movie with calling him Roy, we ended up calling him Bill. And we'd get very confused. We'd have to do takes because people would call him Roy.
In the script, it was Roy Bill.
What a fascinating tale this is.
Roy Bill.
Now, also, this scene of Dee in the phone booth was sort of patterned after the Rosemary's Baby scene where William Castle, the producer, is standing out in front of the phone booth. But I didn't know William Castle, but I did know Roger Corman, who I had worked for slave wages for many years, and we thought it'd be fun to use Roger. This is a close-up of something or other.
Well, aren't I waiting to hear from Eddie?
Yeah, you're waiting to hear from Eddie. Well, but they already know the story, I think.
Oh,
I think the idea is you're supposed to watch the movie once. Ooh. 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 Well, you can imagine how frightening that was on a huge screen.
Miss Belinda.
It's Belinda Blasky, who was in Piranha, a picture I made previous to this, and a number of movies that I've done after.
Who is the guy with the headphones on?
Joe Bratcher is his name. I've seen him in other pictures, but I never used him again. Sorry, Joe. So the legend has it that in order to get Roger to turn around and do this scene, we had to actually put a quarter in the machine. but we actually, when Roger tells the story, it's 50 cents.
Like you told me you'd never be out of contact with her. Now, what kind of operation are you running here?
They have people in the area.
This is Dennis Dugan, who
went on to direct Problem Child, and other stuff.
He's doing a lot of television.
And he's doing a lot of television now.
Did he steal any shots from you in either of those movies?
I doubt it. He probably had more time. Dennis liked to go to the baseball game. They kept saying, "What? Are we done? Can I go to the baseball game?" This was a
sleazy part of town.
Yeah, this is Western Avenue. None of this stuff is here anymore. Now, when we shot in here, this was a real porno store, and because we certainly couldn't have afforded to build our own. This guy named Herbie Braha, who was in a lot of Alan Arkish's pictures. He was very good at this. Dee was really kind of freaked out about going.
This is an understatement. I was
because all this stuff, all the real magazines and stuff were out, and they're all like weird bondage stuff and stuff.
Yeah, but you know how I get into these characters.
She really was. She is believably freaked out in this scene because by the time we were finished, she really was. She couldn't wait to get out of there.
Is this a dolly shot or a steady cam again?
Then that's the only steady cam. We couldn't afford another steady cam. This is all dolly shots. And these are all booths with really sort of grungy things on them that you have to spray a little bit so the MPAA won't get mad, so you can't see them too well. And when she opens the door, I think we switched to a soundstage where we built the inside of this thing. John Hora shot this picture, by the way, and I think it's one of the best jobs he ever did.
I love John.
So now here we are on some soundstage shooting this porno booth scene, projecting a film which, before the movie was started, I shot in my garage. And
was it fun, Joe?
Well, no, it really wasn't actually. It's never really fun to do this kind of stuff because it's
embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. It's embarrassing.
Can I turn around and see you?
Not yet, Karen. Just watch.
Yeah, she is.
This is Serena Grant, who plays the prostitute. There was an earlier scene where Dee talks to her, but we dropped it for whatever reason. It was a shot that started on a lot of wigs in a wig store, and then it panned over to her, and she had a wig on.
Remember that?
Yeah, I don't know where it went. Couldn't find it, so you're out of luck. She's out of luck. That's her only shot. And then Kevin McCarthy is in this scene, who I've also done several pictures with.
Oh, he was hysterical.
And is a great guy. Apparently, the legend had it walked around Central Park for like a whole night trying to decide whether to do Piranha or not, which I can certainly sympathize with that. All the monitors in these scenes, there's all these other little snippets of other Avco Embassy stuff that we got for free. Mostly a picture called Mad Monster Party, which is all puppets.
I'm sorry.
That's one of Kevin's ad libs.
I did the neck crack because that's.
Oh, thank
I
you.
love it so
But, you can do you could dub your dialogue here if you like.
Well, this was all done in post-production. This was all looped. You thought the original, whatever the original dialogue wasn't threatening enough or something, so we did this on the looping stage.
Well, that'll be an interesting thing for people to compare with the script, because I can...
I believe it was
didn't know
changed,
that.
I can't remember.
Everything I say there was looped, and this is the famous scene that we were discussing.
This is the scene that Bob got his job from, because when he did this scene on his audition with Susan Arnold, the casting director, who was Jack Arnold's daughter, and he freaked her out so much that she never wanted to see him again. But we hired him anyway.
I had that effect on a lot of casting. It stood in the way of my going farther, but I did give her the creeps, genuinely. Wouldn't let her turn her head around.
I remember this, Joe. We talked about, how we could make it different.
Mm-hmm.
We came up with that thing about trying to scream and
trying to scream and not being able to.
Being able to.
Yeah, which worked out well with this other scene with these guys not being able to hear you until the... This was a scene that was sort of saved in cutting, because it's important not to have seen the fact that this guy turned into a werewolf, or indeed what he was, before he got shot. And so it's very cutty, as most of the movies that I made up to this point are. Mainly, I think, because I was not really very comfortable with blocking when I did my first couple of pictures, and I intentionally went through the scripts and made the scenes short, so that I wouldn't have to deal with something I thought I wasn't very good at.
Gee, I thought you knew everything about what you were doing.
That's the trick, you see. You have to fool them into thinking you know what you're doing.
Now, what the hell happened back there?
Don't ask me, Lieutenant. Ask Quick Draw McGraw here.
Died in an attempted assault of KDHB anchorwoman Karen White, who had been receiving calls from him in connection with a recent series of...
the older policeman is also in Inner Space.
Ken Toby? Yeah, he's been in tons of pictures. The first time that I ever used him. Yeah, he was the star of the Thing. Now this transition, which is quite nice, actually was Mike Fennell's idea.
Really?
Yes.
Another one I thought that was yours.
No, I'm coming clean on this.
Later on, when you feel up to it.
I don't know.
Just whatever happened in your own words, nothing newsy.
I don't know what happened in there.
This piece of the scene, this big close-up of Dee, was actually shot in the next location, so that when you could pan off her, she would end up being in her own house, which worked nicely, which was a house in Sherman Oaks, I think. And these are actual photos from the Chris Stone D. Wallace collection. Is that you?
That's me.
In high school, or?
No, not really. That was me on, if you must know, doing Fantasy Island. That was still from
And
Fantasy
the last
Island.
picture was on our anniversary in Vegas that we had taken.
See, now this is why people buy these things. They want to know. They want to know these things.
That's mine.
That's your. Oh, that's your.
That's mine.
You mean
I
clothes?
forgot that I wear a lot.
What happened to that?
Oh, probably a dust rag by now.
So this is the beginning of the dream sequences, which I'm still convinced, since John Sayles was writing this picture concurrently with Alligator. In fact, he was up in a room in like the Tropicana Motel, and when people would knock on the door, he'd say, "Who is it?" And if it was us, we would hear, and he'd be pulling out the paper from Alligator, which he was typing, and he would put in ours, and vice versa when they showed up. So I always thought that, that maybe one of our dream sequences ended up in their picture, and that one of theirs ended up in ours, because there's one in theirs that's just like the one that was in ours. I always liked this scene, actually.
Yeah, but see, you didn't have to go home with her afterwards. She carried this with her. No, you did.
No,
Come on, that's at the
it's
point
true.
where
It's
she
true.
would really get into the
I don't so
part
much anymore, but
and have a
No,
have a hard time shaking.
it was a tough thing to do, because if the part called for being really hysterical early in the morning, it was tough to sort of
come on,
calm
you
down
guys.
the
You
next
kind
day.
of have to go into La La Land to pretend you're working with a werewolf.
Well, it depends on who you work with.
Oh, I mean, I'm such a sweet guy, too, to be playing a werewolf. I mean, it takes a lot of imagination. Please throw me a bone.
If I may,
Don't get me
if I may
started.
digress, this was the first day of shooting, and this was a really, truly crappy, seedy place
Gee, we
off
can't
Hollywood
tell.
Boulevard. And the first day shooting was this all the stuff in this house and the stuff in the bookstore. And the day after we shot this stuff, we're on the set and we get a call that all of the footage is out of focus for the whole day. And you can't imagine how demoralizing that is, especially on the second day of a movie. It turns out, of course, that producer Dan Blatt is running it in a room that's got a out of focus projector. So it was really funny. Anyway, this scene with this dog, this gratuitous scare, which I guess is all you could call it.
A cheap scare. I think we
cheap
call it.
scare. Well, it wasn't that cheap. We had to rent the dog. So, it actually it got a huge reaction.
Yeah,
from
it was
people.
very effective.
It's amazing how
The dog got the highest salary in the film.
That I wouldn't doubt.
I think he got the best
argument
notices.
there. And but he had to wear his own clothes too.
and I can't remember who drew these drawings either. Who knows where we got any of the stuff, except that Slasher Haunts Skid Row is a newspaper I saved from Hollywood Boulevard that Dick Miller squirts some ketchup on. I managed to get enough ketchup off it to be able to use it again. Recycling is a very important part of making low-budget pictures.
Plot point.
Yes, definite plot point. Now this is I remember this scene. This is the scene where we did like 19 takes of this scene.
This one here?
Yeah, there was a take where Belinda fell off the table. And I kind of liked it. I kept it in the movie for an awful long time until people finally said, you can't release a movie where the actress falls off the table by accident. But she sort of recovered, so it kind of looked okay. But anyway, I think it's on the blooper reel. However, Mike Fennell was standing in Patrick McNee's eye line, looking at his watch, because we were way over. And we kept having to do the scene over and over and over. And Patrick finally came to me and said, Michael Rooney is a dear fellow, but if he doesn't get out of my eye line, we're going to be here all night. And I had to ask Mike to leave, actually, and then it worked fine.
Poor Michael.
Ugh, that was that thing again.
Those lips again.
No, I think this was a longer scene. There's more dialogue to it, or there was more lead up to it, and that we ended up cutting it off in the middle and putting that insert in the middle of it. I don't think it's written that
This
way
was
in
in
the
Northern
script.
California, right? This was not at the studio.
Yes, this was in Northern. This was at that cabin.
At
Oh no,
the
it wasn't at the
cabin.
cabin.
Don't go out there. That cabin.
Oh, no, that was at the house.
No, it was at the house.
Right.
Yeah. And now we're back in the TV station, and now this is interesting. This set, such as it is actually just the same part of the TV station you were looking at a minute ago, except that these walls are fake. And you'll notice that if somebody walks, that lady who walked by there, or all they do is they walk right into a wall, and they have to stand there until the scene's over because the wall just continues.
Caught Eddie the Mangler.
Terrific. You have my copy?
Yes.
Good luck.
Boy, she seems shaky.
Looked fine to me.
Well, I'm glad Dennis Dugan got out of that last sweater, too, the ones with the stripes on it.
It doesn't look on video.
It was making me a little nauseous.
Now, it may have been his.
It probably was his.
Up on two.
This is, let's see, there's some references in here to, I think some inside jokes in here, but if I could tell you what they were, if I remembered them, I would tell you what they were. But
They're so far inside.
I don't remember. They're so far inside that they're outside. I think these guys, these other two guys are like, one of them was a real sportscaster, I think. But who can remember? It's been so long ago. It's always Channel 6 in movies, have you noticed?
No.
Yeah, it's always Channel 6 because it's usually the most unused number.
Get off her. Get her out of there.
Reports from health officials at the
Roll
scene of
7.
today's chemical
Put her on the editorial.
disposal company in El Monte.
Should have had Kevin here. He has
How did you
many interesting
superimpose
stories.
the image over the lens?
Cheaply. Very cheaply. And it's interesting, the TV version of this picture is, you can't have that. You can't, I don't think that shot is in it. And they didn't have a lot of money to do a classy TV version where they go back and do all sorts of tricks, so basically we just cut things out.
You had to cut the shot out.
Yeah, there's a lot of strange, no, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. You can't have breasts on TV.
Well, you can now.
Well, now you can, but you couldn't.
You know,
You couldn't then.
NYPD Blue, you can have.
Maybe she's pregnant. Listen, get in touch with that Fujiyama
And
Fujimoto.
this is a politically incorrect reference to Asians in this scene, as I recall.
Now there is a pro.
But he was supposed to be a jerk character.
Yeah, he was supposed
anyway,
to be a jerk. Now this is there's a little funky crease on the wallpaper there, but I always pretend not to notice it.
Well, I never noticed it till you just mentioned it, Joe. Thanks.
So this is a cheap set?
This is all you see is these two walls. That's all there were.
There were 2 walls?
This was a very, very low budget movie. That's not true.
What was the
No, a
budget?
very, very low budget movie is like
was.
my first movie, $60,000. That's a very, very low budget
what
movie.
was the budget?
This was a
Just two?
million.
What was it,
Million one.
Million one?
So you got these 2 walls, and Alligator got the other 2 walls?
It certainly got some of the dialogue.
Million one. Gee, all I can see is that crease now, Joe.
Well, but it's a nice pattern, though.
Yeah,
Don't you think?
For a week or two.
Your place up north there?
That's right. Now, I only recommend it to very special patients, ones who I think will benefit from its environment. It's a place where you can recharge your battery. It'll enable you to try and get back to what you really are.
What goes on up there?
Well, seminars, some group therapy. It's very low-key. It'll be a good place to try and tackle this amnesia thing.
I remember this shot.
Oh my
John
gosh.
Horace
We were so cramped.
John Hora is hanging out of the passenger
My
side.
legs are over
Yeah.
John
That's right.
Hora's head.
And all we kept worrying
beg
about
your
is if we passed a tree, we were going to lose
Yeah.
our cameraman completely.
It was so cramped. It was so uncomfortable and trying to move our legs.
But this stuff, the exteriors, the point of views are in Mendocino, right?
Yeah.
And here's John Carradine.
Yes.
This was out in I don't remember exactly. I think it's Leo Carrillo Beach. I'm not sure which beach, but it's in. I see this beach in hundreds of movies. This was John's. John was just a great guy to work
Yeah,
with,
he
and so full of stories that I did the slates on most of this movie just so that I could like be close to him and listen to half a story, and then we do the scene. I do another take just to hear the second half of the story.
No, I try to stay.
Maybe later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Nice to see that meat.
Karen, why?
Now this is that was James Murtaugh, the
Who
other
was
guy.
also the A1 steak sauce man around the
That's
same
right.
time.
That's right.
That's right.
Where
And
he was
this
barbecuing. That has nothing to do with that.
I didn't know.
Sort of a
I never.
subliminal thing in your.
I had never seen him before, and Margie Impert, who is the other person who
Who I did a series with,
And I did-
Spencer's Pilot. She
Oh,
was-
really?
Yeah, one of the
Tons of
regular-
Before this?
commercials with
Yes.
both of them.
And Margie was in my acting class.
Really? Well, and I never worked with her again.
And James, he's gone on to do quite a.
And this is
James
Noble Willingham, who
Noble, right.
who is has been doing very well lately. Has a great part in Good Morning Vietnam, and is also a wonderful guy. And he would accost me after the movie and say, "I want you to see my work. I want you to see what I've been doing."
Oh, he is so funny. Do you remember we were all staying in one motorhome,
Yeah, I remember that.
and we would be freezing to death, and we would come in, and he'd go, "So, are you out there filming the Howling?" Just on and on and on all night.
I remember those damn teeth.
Hell of a note.
Yeah, right.
The idea being, of course, up to now, we're not supposed to know that these people are werewolves. I don't know how many people
And
can
of
watch
course,
this movie now and not know
We
that.
don't think she's a little bizarre. So
Well, no, obviously they're all pretty weird, but there's a certain amount of stuff in the genre where people they sort of know what's going on, but it's the ritual.
Her outfit is a strange cross between Native American and S&M. Looking back.
Estonam, I think it was.
Estonam.
This scene is flipped for reasons that I can't recall. I think because the locale is so similar to the last shot that in order to make it look like we had a bigger area, we just flipped the shot. Which makes it an optical, makes it
You were
slightly-
funny in this scene, Chris. I can't remember what the dialogue was, but
I was looking for you, and she wanted to know why, and she said,
We just kept saying why.
Yeah.
Now, an interesting thing with Elizabeth's performance was that, not really because of her performance, but just in the editing, we discovered that she had a lot of dialogue, and we had a long scene where Dee confronted her in the woods, in fact, which we shot on a big circular track, which everybody made fun of me about. But in fact, the less her character said, the more mysterious she was. So we ended up taking out almost all the dialogue. I bet you she's only got like maybe 12 lines in the whole picture. And this is Don McLeod, who was a friend of Rob Bottin's, and had been an ape in a picture called Tanya's Island, and was very sort of lithe and sort of athletic, and he sort of played this wolf boy kind of character.
My brother.
Your brother, that's right.
That's right, I forgot, he's your brother in here.
And she's my sister, as I recall, isn't she? That would make her my sister.
Yeah, I think it's true.
So we're just kind of a family.
Just one big happy family.
Yeah. Weird but happy.
The family that
Howls
South Roads together.
I remember it was a little chilly this night.
It was freezing.
We were right by the ocean.
There was a big chunk cut out, too, of dialogue between you and Margie on the beach about something which I can't recall.
Now, these were professional maker-outers, right?
Yes, they were. They were.
I know, I
professional
remember you
maker-outers.
telling me this.
Well, they were good, weren't they?
They were
That's
very good.
convincing. John would come to the set, and he would have these big blankets. And he'd bring them like every night. And he'd say, John, why are you bringing all these blankets? He said, well, my motorhome is broken. And it would be, he wouldn't tell anybody. He'd worked on so many really low-budget pictures that he was used to going into the motorhome and having it be broken and having no heat and not saying anything to anybody.
I thought we were all in one motorhome.
No,
He had one?
He had a little tiny one.
Well-
No, when we were out in Griffith Park.
Joking.
And also then the next day he brought Chips Ahoy. And we said, why do you bring these? Well, they're my favorite cookies. And I said, well, John, if you just tell us, we could get Chips Ahoy. I mean, it's not that cheap a movie.
Let me go. I want to end it.
Easy, buddy, just calm down.
It's the only way. I gotta end it. I gotta burn.
Oh, now calm down. Think a minute.
You gotta let me do it, Doc. You gotta.
Patrick certainly has the nicest sweaters in the movie now.
Tricks. He's just trying to get attention.
I want to end it. It just goes on and on.
Oh, you know better than that.
You gotta let
The old
me
man
do it. You
shouldn't
gotta.
drink. Really gets him loose.
There's a microphone in this shot, but not in the letterbox version.
So pleased to see that you're safe and sound. They won't think anything more of you. And you get a good night's sleep. Everything will seem better in the light of day. There now.
When you first read this script, did you imagine John playing that role from the beginning? Or
We actually thought of Elisha Cook.
June Allison?
No, not June Allison. Gene Evans, I know we thought about. There were a number of actors that we thought about, but John seemed to be the best.
Gene Evans was in Spencer's Pilots along with...
Was he?
Yeah,
I always
we would
wanted
have
to
the whole cast.
always wanted to do a movie with Gene Evans.
Now, this is in Northern California. Not this shot, but...
You're sleeping
the
in
cabin
Northern California,
things,
yeah. Oh, are you sure it was in Northern California, or was it someplace like out by Chatsworth? Wasn't there a little...
No. We went...
I
Are you
remember
talking about
this little
this
little house.
For the house, jeez.
I seem to recall
It
that
was
it was
little. I remember that.
It's a real place. I mean, almost everything in this movie is a real place. Except that, she's in Chatsworth looking out the window, and then when she looks, what she sees is in Mendocino.
Well, was it Mendocino, or was it...
It was Mendocino. It's just above San Francisco.
Now, is that all that fog natural?
No, well, we had one fog machine, and a guy named Evo, who was in charge of the fog machine, and basically it would be more fog Evo. That's all anybody would ever say, because with only one machine, as soon as he got it good in one place, it would blow away, and then he'd have to go back.
Okay, sure, somebody's dog.
Not like any dog I ever heard.
Honey, you were raised in L.A. The wildest thing you ever heard was Wolfman Jack. This is the country. Come on, let's try to get some sleep, okay? Okay? Okay. Good.
sure like the way Gigi did my makeup. I have to go back to that. Oh, this is the don't go out there.
Yes,
You'll kill yourself.
you have to have these scenes in pictures. You have to have scenes where characters go places that the audience doesn't want them to go, and they have to say, no, don't go. Now this
is supposed to be the POV of.
It's a POV of a bad person. It's a bad person POV.
A possible werewolf. Person.
Yes, a possible werewolf, and is probably the cheapest kind of directing. Where you, it's.
I didn't say it.
I'm sorry, but it is. I mean, I try to stay away from it, but sometimes you just.
That was a
can't help
handheld thing to give it that sort of four-leg creeping along feeling. Right?
Now this was up in Mendocino. This was the one of those. It was sort of an abandoned summer camp kind of a situation where because there were a lot of cabins.
Well, I thought the place we were shooting, we had to go down into like a valley
that's
or
what this
something
was.
And pass guys with rifles who were guarding their marijuana fields.
No, it could be. Now this scene is always puzzled. It's always puzzled me that nobody ever said anything about it because she goes outside and she finds this. We don't know what it is. It's actually a piece of her underwear that in a missing scene, this guy, TJ, has gone into her house and pulled out her underwear and started like sniffing it and ripping it up and stuff. And it's a scene that we took out, which
Why'd you
used
take
to.
it
Because the order of the events in this part of the movie is switched around. This tennis scene used to take place before that scene, and one of the things that happens in movies is that you always end up moving things around. And when you read original scripts, you're often surprised to find that scenes that were supposed to have taken place at the end of the movie have been moved to the beginning of the movie, and this one is no exception.
I
Slim
really
Pickens.
did not want to wear anything short in the scene. You made me wear these shorts.
Oh, but you look good in them.
Well,
I think.
Thank you. But at the time, I didn't think I looked good in anything short. Now I think I look really comparatively now.
And there's a lot of Slim Pickens. There was a lot of Slim, who worked on the movie for, I think, a day and a half. And I hardly ever got to talk to him. And here is John Sayles playing the coroner in the real City of Hope morgue, which in order to walk into,
got that scene.
In order to walk into, you had to go through this this light, this green light, with some sort of kill germs and stuff. And because and there was a real coroner, the guy who really worked there, who I think is in the background, delighted in taking the real bodies out and showing them to people because he thought it was like a lot of fun. And I guess John sort of took his cue from him. There's a bunch of references, another werewolf movie reference in here somewhere to the guy who directed Werewolf of London. And this is
you mangle up the door at the end. Did you?
That's it. We brought that with us and just put it on.
Was that a stupid question, Joe?
No, I think the fact that there's any question at all is a big plus, considering.
Thank you.
Considering how
How'd
vacant.
you get that moon, Joe?
This is another scene that was longer at the beginning, and we just.
Is this Dave?
Oh, in fact, there's a scene missing here. There was another. There was a group therapy session that went right in here, which I think is included later in the picture.
Yeah.
And this is night for night, not day for night. Right?
This is all night for night. No, we didn't. I don't think we did any day for night, except
we
inside.
shot a lot of nights.
There were a lot of night stuff.
Oh boy.
And cold too.
I don't remember being cold. I bet you remember being cold.
Now the dialogue in this scene is all of Margie's dialogue is lifted from another scene that we eliminated, which was the hot tub scene.
I remember the hot tub scene.
Which we shot, which had some nudity in it, as I recall, but which didn't advance the story at all. But there was a bunch of good dialogue in it, and so we saved it and put it when they're walking down the hill.
I know they sent the stills out though, and all the stills package.
Unfortunately,
I'm still
in the
hot
still
tub.
package, there is still the hot tub scene. We couldn't kill it.
Now what? What's wrong? Great! What's wrong? Oh, what's wrong? All right, let me look at it. Let me see.
Now, wasn't there a problem with that head that we used? If I remember right.
It wasn't a real head.
That's what I mean. No, but there was like it didn't look right, or we had to.
I can't remember.
What head are you talking?
The cow's head.
Oh, the cow's head.
Now this gets a big jump in a theater too. It's funny, you never really know what's going to work and what's you can imagine that you've got the greatest scare in the world worked out, and if you haven't led up to it right, it doesn't work. And then yet the most obvious thing, which this certainly is, will make people jump out of their seats. Now this is an interesting scene. This scene, this was a day when, just to show you how messed up low-budget movies can be, the scene that we were supposed to shoot this day was the hot tub scene, and the hot tub is actually off camera up to the right, to the left, and this track that we're on now was actually built to track into the hot tub, but the hot tub water didn't arrive that day, so we couldn't shoot the scene. So this scene, which was scheduled to be shot elsewhere, we had to bring in all the actors really quick and shoot this scene and just make it all up as we went along. It was not the ideal way to shoot the scene.
But the scene played.
No, the scene plays okay. This close-up of John Carradine is from the hot tub scene, if you can see the water. You can see the water on it.
And Jim Murtaugh's shirt was from a Brady Bunch episode.
But this movie was a lot of fun to make.
It was.
It's one of the best times I ever had.
And here is TJ running around in a slightly underexposed shot on, and I guess in that other. It's so. Now here we're in Griffith Park. I mean, one of the great things about nature is that you can cut together all these different locations.
That's at Griffith Park?
This is in Griffith Park. Now the guy who just walked by, Ivan Sarek, with a mustache, had a big part originally in the picture. He was a tennis pro, supposedly, and he ended up just ending up on the cutting room floor, so that he's not really a character at all. And he was a really sweet guy, but it just ended up getting cut out.
This is that scene you were talking about earlier.
Right, now this is actually the second group therapy scene, but the way it is in the movie now, it's the first one. It's a little disorienting because in the original scene there was an overhead shot that showed you exactly where you were and that it was a group therapy scene. In this scene you have to just sort of try to pick it up. Also, I think this is the middle of the scene. I think we started the scene. I think I remember you were annoyed because when you saw the movie you said, "Why?" Because we had done so much work that day, and you couldn't believe that it had been reduced to such a short.
This is where you have that camera move, though. Don't you have that camera move that she comes forward? Or
yeah. This is the. I guess this is known as the Jaws displacement move. It's almost always used incorrectly.
She's sitting on a dolly?
No, it's just a camera. It's just that you zoom in and track back, and it displaces the background, or
I don't know, but I was
versa.
But really into that scene. I remember that.
You were good in that scene.
I
thought. What do I know?
My favorite comment that you ever said to me, was, "Oh, I don't know, Dee. Sometimes I think you're better after I say cut." Do you
Did I really say?
Yes.
This is the Cherokee bookstore, the ex-Cherokee bookstore. And there's Dick Miller. This was the end of the first day's shooting. We shot this stuff.
How much did you? How many pages did you do the first?
We shot a lot of stuff. I mean, we shot these whole two scenes.
You
this
did
was
both of his scenes in the end.
I did all of his scenes in half a day, and I did. But this was following the scene that we had shot with, in that grungy hotel room.
That's it. You name it, I got the book.
A number of young women were killed in the next month. Their bodies.
Dick brought the armadillo with him. I don't.
Did he really?
He did. I don't.
Great. I just stole this performance in a low-budget movie this year. I tried to copy him because I thought he was so funny in this movie, and I thought it's been long enough, no one will remember.
This is Fari Ackerman, who is the editor of Famous Monsters of Filmland, who, as usual, has brought several of them with him.
Holding them in his
people
hand.
used to think they were actually surgically attached to his hands, but in fact, he just used to bring them everywhere he went.
Real subtle.
What about killing it with silver bullets?
Oh, sure. Silver bullets are fire. It's the only...
And this was, we had only, this is like all, I think this is all one shot because we were running out of time and there was no other way to do it. There's a lot of that in this movie.
Nothing. They may look dead, but bam, 3 days later, they're as good as new.
Do you believe in this?
What, am I an idiot? I'm making a buck here. You know?
The way you work out doing a cheap movie is that you try to do all of your complicated stuff in the morning because at the end of the day, suddenly you're running out of time and you have to try to do everything in one.
But don't you find that sometimes when you have more money, you're not as creative too.
Oh, absolutely.
Or
I mean,
you're so
some of the
overly
best-
creative that you.
Some of the best stuff that I've ever done has been done under tremendous pressure.
Yeah.
Or just everybody deciding, okay, now how can we do this? Everybody can just decide what's the best idea to try to fix this scene, and somebody will come up with an idea that's the best idea that anybody's had on the movie, and it makes for a great scene. This was again back in
this was
back in Mendocino, and this is a really cool house.
And we were running out of light on this.
We hadn't. Yes, this was, and this is like I think the first take.
That's one of those scenes you were talking about, where everybody got together. And
Yeah.
said, well, if we do this, and we can combine these two scenes.
Well, there was hardly enough time to light the background. That was the problem.
we were running.
We were really scrambling, and I think this is the only take we did. But it turned out okay. It's a little grainy, but it's a lovely shot.
Yeah, we did it all.
Well,
in
grainy's eerie. That's okay.
Yeah.
You can see it's getting dark out there.
Yeah. And then it finally
That's a
is dark
great
by the
shot,
time. It's a
though.
really nice house. And this is the real interior of it. And again, there was a lot more dialogue, I think, at the beginning of the scene.
Is that the puppet she shot
I
over
don't
there?
remember a
too?
lot of. I remember. You think there was? A lot
I think there was. I don't remember what it was, but maybe I'm wrong. People can check it out.
That's her one outfit, right? She just
And
changes
pretty much her one
necklaces.
outfit. Now, it's
She only
interesting.
puts it on and
Another
takes
thing
it off.
another thing about directing is that while I was watching them shoot the previous scene, I was crouching right here, and as often happens when you're shooting a scene, you discover, geez, I should have shot it from over here, and so we shot it from over there. This is another one of John Hora's moons, which he went out on his own time and tried to photograph. Now, this is an interesting scene in that it starts in Mendocino, and it ends up on a stage on Cahuenga Boulevard. And because of this sort of Japanese painting kind of style of lighting, it works. It cuts together quite well.
Yeah, I really like the way this picture's lit. Actually.
And this is one. I guess this is the first of one of Rob Bottin's werewolf creations.
He worked so hard on these.
And what happened really with this movie is that when we began it, Rob had a bunch of designs and ideas that we wanted to use, but now this is a shot on a stage.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, and a very
That's
small
a shot
stage.
on a stage?
It's a very small stage. Now this is on a stage too. All of this is on a stage because it's all insert work that we had to do later because Rob didn't have the makeup's perfected yet.
Oh, nice hair, honey.
And then now this is back, however, back in Mendocino. We wanted to do a werewolf movie that wasn't like all the other werewolf movies that had been made, and ostensibly would have a transformation done in one shot. And this was our dream. Now that I've seen Morphing, and I see how that works, I think we were better off not doing it that way. But as it happens, that was the original plan.
I want to go home.
I wouldn't advise traveling right now. A bite like that can be pretty serious.
Yes, that's the sign of the werewolf.
That's just a legend, though, isn't it?
Yes, but like most legends, it must have some basis in fact. It's probably an ancient explanation of the dual personality in each of us. How does it go? Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf bane blooms. And the autumn moon is bright.
You're reading. I'll get it.
Who's calling you at 11 p.m.?
Oh, I remember.
No, it's my phone. I'll get it. I'll get it.
That night.
I'll get it. I'll
You want me to get it?
You get it.
Hello?
There's no crime in that.
Karen? No, we're still up.
You think I don't
What?
know the difference between a wolf and a man?
You're kidding me. No, listen, we'll come right up, okay? We'll be right up. Just calm down. Okay. Okay, bye-bye.
What is it?
Bill just got bitten by a wolf.
Whoever is bitten by a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf.
Tell us about this, Joe. How did we get this
I didn't
footage?
make this picture. Oh, well, actually, this was back in the days when you could actually buy footage from companies. They didn't charge you a lot of money.
And who did?
That's a very important scene from The Wolfman.
Maria Uppenskog.
Which that was another thing about this movie, was that we didn't want this to be another picture where people had to go to the old professor and say, "Professor, what is a werewolf?" And well, a werewolf is this strange creature that. We wanted it to be a contemporary movie that would, at the beginning, start out like it isn't going to be a werewolf movie. That isn't going to have torches and all and small villages and villagers and stuff. And so that's why the beginning of the movie looks more like a film noir. It was on purpose, really. And the Eddie Quist character doesn't appear immediately to be a werewolf.
But didn't you get that footage on your own?
The werewolf?
The werewolf footage? Well, it's from my print, but we had to pay for it. I mean, you can't sneak that stuff. MCA has lots of lawyers, and they what we didn't have is we didn't have the expensive setup to shoot off a video screen without lines on it. So all of the shots that we had to do had to be...
Rumor had it on the set, though, that you paid a lot of those inserts on your own.
Well, no, I paid for it out of my own pocket. It didn't come out of the budget.
Well, that's a little bit of trivia that people might like.
But now we have Thomas Wolfe. There's a lot of Wolfe jokes in the movie, so here we are reading Thomas Wolfe, and presented brilliantly out of focus so that you can't see it.
In this book here. Well, I just thought maybe
Your timing.
And this is, of course, when Royville is starting to feel the effects of his werewolf transformation, which apparently does not include being good in bed, or at least not with your wife.
You gotta have the black leather.
You know what I remember now about this scene? I don't know if it was this scene, but it was in the bedroom. Is every time the dolly moved, that floor.
Oh, creak!
Remember the floor?
Would creak, and we'd have to hold our lines between the creak.
That's true, and that's another outtake that we have.
Oh, did I curse?
Now, this is a fake window that we brought up with us and just shot out of because it was nowhere near where we were really shooting, of course. And this is more dream stuff. This is not the alligator dream sequence, I don't think. This is part of a dream sequence, and this was actually part of something that we shot for a scene earlier in the picture, which I can't remember how we were going to use, but I liked the shot, so we put it in the dream sequence. This is a very creaky dolly, but you can't hear most of it in the movie.
Boy, it was loud. I mean, we cracked up.
I know, we cracked up laughing a couple of times until I got so
This
frustrated.
was one of the coldest days of the year.
This was a very difficult scene to shoot. This is
for whom?
For everybody, including you.
They were giving us some brandy so that the goosebumps wouldn't show in the scene. It was like 34 degrees.
Now, the people watching, I mean, this is a hard scene for a wife to watch, you know.
Well, you didn't watch it.
No,
you went away.
I was very, very, very close. You know, I remember you coming up to me and going, "So, Dee, so what are you going to do that night?" Because you know, we were like family by then. I went out and got drunk.
Well, so did they, as it turned out, because the only way that we could actually do this scene was it was so cold that we had to just keep pouring.
Now tell everybody you had your mouth closed like you tell me every time.
I did. There were no tongues involved, and you know that. I have never, ever.
This also was a scene where John Hora kept pulling out more filters, and while these people were naked, you know, he was saying, "Well, how about this filter?" I said, "Well, that's fine. How about this one?" And I looked down, he had a whole box of filters. He was going to show me every single one of them while these people were freezing to death. And you have to hide the crew behind the Winnebagos, because you know one of the things about doing nudity is that people don't like everybody to be watching. So you end up with like there's
which they do anyway.
Well, of course, then you look over and there's all these eyes peeking from behind the Winnebago. You know, it's really not an easy.
Well, it doesn't bother Chris. I know that.
Well,
it's not an easy thing to do.
How many have you done since then?
Nude scene?
Yeah.
Since he's been married to me.
I don't remember any. I was just
I
wondering.
did one in the Grasshopper with Jackie Bishop.
But that was before.
That was before. I
have
done one or two since then.
I have.
Yeah, you have. But you know.
I beg for them.
I
to never
mean-
give me one.
But not like this. Nothing like gratuitous.
And well,
like
also this takes a long time to do
Gratuitous
this
or
kind of
graphic?
Graphic.
It wasn't
It's not hardly
gratuitous.
gratuitous.
Really, it was.
This is
well,
tame
story
compared
point.
to what you see these days. We had to cut around certain things, but
Yeah, this was. And this was.
now this also includes, I think, some inserts that we did later
Soundstage,
on a
soundstage.
soundstage.
The transformation.
Could this be one?
No, this isn't one. We did this one here, and this was this didn't really work that well. The idea was
see
that
the-
supposed to be that her tongue was like really long,
Yeah,
but it didn't. It didn't really look right, and I'm glad there's not enough light on it.
Oh, I remember that. That was.
This here.
Now this stuff
Yeah, the fangs.
The
growing.
fangs and all this. Now, this was done on a soundstage, I believe.
Yeah.
And Gary Graver, in fact, I think shot this.
I remember.
And the problem with all this slobbering, everybody said, "Oh, it's so cool," but the fact is that once they had the fangs in, you couldn't swallow, and so the stuff would just come out.
You had a spring that you operated with your tongue that made the teeth grow, but you couldn't swallow.
Don't laugh.
Sorry,
That was
honey.
cool.
It was cool then.
Really?
So obviously, things have changed. Times have changed, and
all that fur that they had to put on that makeup stuff was like.
well, what really annoyed me was that the still that they released was just a shot of you with some fangs, and not even in this kind of makeup, and it looked like it was from a Mexican horror movie.
Yeah, and this took a long time. They'd apply a little at a time.
It did
Shoot
take a long
Really
time, and it was all
difficult-
shot indoors.
Difficult time with those contacts too. I remember that.
Oh, the contacts are awful because you can't leave them in for very long.
And
You
my
had a
eyes are
terrible
sensitive
time.
to contacts anyway. And
Well, that was true with everybody, though.
I had 14 karat gold ones, and I liked them.
And that was the
That
Phil
was that.
Tippett.
That was an animated shot that was done by Pete Coran.
Something scope. What was that called? The process.
I don't think it was called any. I don't think it's got a process. It's just.
It wasn't.
But it is stop motion, though, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's animation. It's cell animation, and it's not exactly perfect, but it's the best. It's by far the best we could do.
Like rotoscope, or I don't know what.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. It is. It's rotoscoped. It's a rotoscoped, but it's an animated
Wow,
process.
I'm impressed.
This was, let's see. There was a little more to this scene too, but now there's an odd thing on the TV version for some reason. These scenes are out of order. This scene is later, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. I don't know how it happened. I don't know when it happened, but it's just not right. It cuts directly from her to her up on the hill, and then this scene is later. But don't ask me why.
Now, Belinda's been in a number of your movies, too.
Belinda's been in, let's see, the first picture was Piranha, then this picture, then a lot of them. I mean, just...
Recently, the one we did.
Runaway Daughters has like the entire cast of the Howling in it, practically.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Did we have fun?
That was
those
fun.
Days?
That was a lot of fun. Just stop you people from laughing so we can shoot, for God's sake.
This was beautiful country though up there.
This was nice. It was very nice
Really
to shoot. This was also, didn't we do this early? Didn't we do this? This like an early part of the movie? Or did we wait until the end?
We did the location stuff late, didn't we?
At the end?
Yeah.
I guess we were pretty together by then.
Who drew the drawing?
I can't remember. I honestly don't remember who did the drawings. Eddie. Eddie did the drawings. Now this is I guess this is what's coming up next is a rather extended, I guess you'd call a scare scene. And in fact, it's probably the longest sequence in the picture.
Oh,
and
right.
one of the reasons is that it was so gorgeous up there. And there's a lot of music in this scene, and then Pino Donaggio, who did the music, had done also the music for Piranha, and he didn't speak a great deal of English, so Paul Bartel would like translate, and we would go over the cues and things. And then he would go off to Italy and he would write, and there's no money for me to go. Now that I work with Jerry Goldsmith, I'm usually in on everything. But I wouldn't hear the music until it came back. And sometimes when you've spotted music, you decide on the dubbing stage that maybe that's not really where you want to have it, or this cue doesn't work quite as well as you thought it did. And so in this scene, we dropped a bunch of the music and just played sound effects. John Brasher, the sound guy, convinced me that the scene would seem too repetitive if the music kept going. So we ended up dropping a bunch of it, and it actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
But Pino, the first thing he said to me when I saw him after was, "What happened? Where is the music? What is it gone?" Which is also a problem in that in Europe when they dub pictures. This picture premiered in France before it was released in America, and I saw the dubbed version of it. And they had turned down the music and sound effects so you could hear the looped lines louder.
Oh.
And I said, "What happened to the sound?" And he said, "Oh, this is the way we always do it. They like this. They like to be able to hear the dialogue." And it was maddening. The movie was completely ruined. It was all you could hear was this bad dubbing, and you'd have to listen for all the sound effects and all the stuff you kill yourself on a sound stage or a dubbing stage to try to get right. And That's the way they dub movies then, or at least that when I started work for Spielberg, they started to dub the foreign versions here because of that problem, and they would get the voice tracks and then they would just mix everything here so that it would sound like the original version.
We weren't invited to that Parisian premiere, were we?
No, I was invited. It was the Avoriaz Film Festival, where, by the way, it lost to a picture called Terror Eyes, a.k.a. Night School with Rachel Ward, which is a movie about people finding heads in pots of soup.
Well, how do you compete with that?
I know. That was kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah, the old heads in the pots of soup thing again.
They had a lot of Campbell's money behind it.
We did go to the Pomona premiere, didn't we?
Pomona?
Pomona premiere.
Probably the premiere.
Well, if we have, I've forgotten it.
It was probably a gala event.
Hello?
Now, this was a real little cabin out in the middle of God knows nowhere, and originally there was a. Well, these are Rob's werewolf legs.
Yeah, I really like those too.
One of the problems with the movie was that the idea of having werewolves that had the contours of real wolves was very difficult to do with people in suits, and the original tests that we did kind of looked like a bear. And we shot a bunch of it. A guy in a wolf suit, sort of wandering around Mendocino, and it just didn't look right. And so, in the end, what we had to do is go back after we finished editing the picture, and ask for more money. We had to go to embassy and say we'd like to get another couple of $1,000s to do better special effects, and they came up with it. They got a company named Westcom.
How did those legs work? Was somebody suspended?
Somebody was suspended, and
moving like.
Yeah. One version of the movie, she goes into that closet, and there's this big scare with this cat, this dead cat that's in there, but it's pretty stupid, so we took it out.
You didn't actually kill a cat.
And this used to all be one shot. It used to pan over to the window, but over to the mirror, but it got too long, so we had to cut it in two.
This was a long sequence, I remember, but it was.
Well, but it's a sort of the build-up, to give you the build-up, because it's the first time you get to see the wolf. But in fact, a lot of the stuff that Rob had built, because we didn't have any money, was very limited. He would build a head, and it didn't have much in the way of shoulders, so that when we didn't really have a full werewolf suit when we shot the original picture, and so we went back and built that suit for the.
We didn't have anything.
In this sequence, do you see the entire wolf, or do you see portions?
Well, in this sequence, you see the original wolf suit. You don't see much of it because the trick was to not show much. But it didn't work in any other scene but this one. And so later, when the laboratory scene came up where she gets killed, we had to do it over. See, this is one of those scenes where what you don't show makes it a lot more interesting than if you do show.
Building it up. Get under the house. Yeah, see, you just get
you get a glimpse. If you got to see any more of it, it would look pretty bad.
Yeah, just a glimpse, a hand here.
So this actually also includes a number of shots that were not shot at this time, like that one, and that aren't even Belinda. It's the double. Yeah. It was a scene that needed to be beefed up because we just ended up seeing too much of what we didn't want to see.
I saw that one of those hands I saw on a Soupy Sales show.
White Fang.
And
that's the one.
The arm chopping.
I remember this.
Oh, yeah.
This was an MPA problem,
cool. Now,
as you might imagine.
The guts from that are from like Safeway, from the meat department.
No, I don't think so. I think it's all phony.
This was great. Now, you showed the film in reverse.
Yeah, some of this is in reverse here. And this was back when bladders were the big thing, that you would inflate things. And so
Which
that's
often-
basically what this is. And this, however, is a real hand
That's
with a fake arm.
that's great.
That one was a great shot.
The bladders, are, more often than not, were condoms, by the way.
Very often, yeah.
Unused condoms, and you know.
Well, we couldn't afford to use them. Now here we
You were too busy to date.
here we are in Griffith Park again, and now she's going to run from Griffith Park to Mendocino.
To Mendocino.
And boy, would she be
In
tired.
2 shots. And now she's in Mendocino.
So you'd never know, would you? Great.
And now she's on Cahuenga Boulevard at the Cahuenga stage.
Uh-oh, and she meets the big guy soon.
And I think this is a really good shot with when you see the legs and
Well, no, this worked out fine, but again, it was something that in order to get it done, we had to go to somebody and ask for more money, and that's how a company called Westcom got involved with it. One of Rob Bottin's pictures of Lon Chaney Jr. when he was very young. And now he's apparently Eddie Quist likes to tape things. He's he's a mad taper.
You could tell the difference in the hand shots. Belinda's nails are sort of frosted blue. And mine are tinged with blood.
This is the scene where he hits you.
Oh gosh, remember this one?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Worked well though. What?
I guess it wasn't her favorite scene.
No wonder, honey. You've been asleep all day.
Jesus, where'd you get those scratches on your back?
He didn't really hit me. Just sort of.
Oh, you're just spoiling it for everyone. People think it's real.
I didn't hit you in this. A little. Right? A little. But you were nag.
Well, no wonder. Look at her. She's driving him
Couple
too.
of scratches on the back. Bandage.
Could have gone under a barbed wire
Whoa.
fence.
Oh, boy.
No.
That was the bitch and heat line.
Whoa.
No, he's sorry now, though.
I am.
I'm gonna go over to Doc's and call Chris. He'll come pick Terry and me up. You can do whatever you want.
And that bed, remember? Squeak. Ooh, you were
going to-
angry too.
I'm going to go sleep in the other room of a one-room cabinet.
Yeah.
You're like you didn't get
What?
smacked there.
Why?
How can you remember that?
Yeah, really. What was going on?
I remember it like we shot it yesterday.
Well, tell me. What was going on?
I just got into the scene so much, and you grabbed me. That last time you grabbed me, you don't remember
yeah,
I
you tried
had
to-
marks
Oh, yeah.
on my arm?
It's a sort of method stuff. Now, this conversation here was added later. Dan Blatt, the producer, was constantly concerned that people would be confused about the story, and he would constantly say, "Well, they should have coffee and talk about it." And so we actually scripted a whole bunch of scenes where these two characters went out and talked about the plot, and it's not really something you needed to do. So eventually, I convinced him to throw all that stuff out, and we just did this thing in this phone call, and it made it just so much simpler.
I love Howl.
That's an egregious mistake on my part.
No, it was quick.
No, I know, but there was no reason for it. This works fine.
This is great.
This is okay, but it's not a very funny joke. You can get carried away.
I
with
like
stuff.
this. I love this shot.
Yeah.
Well, this was again another thing about how do you do this kind of scene that's been done 150 times in a way that's different, and by humanizing the werewolf, I think it made it more interesting.
It's a really good sequence. Yeah?
It's a good
Very
suit.
scary,
It's a
too.
very good
It's
suit
well
too. But I mean, if you hadn't had this stuff, which we didn't have available to us initially, the picture wouldn't have worked at all.
All of these scenes were done 4 to 6 weeks after principal photography, right?
That scene was done. Was it 4 weeks after?
Yeah, it was some time after.
Yeah, I think so. It was probably at least enough time to edit the picture and look and see what we had. This took a while to shoot, though.
All of my stuff was done on Saturdays, I remember, because I was doing a musical comedy during the week and tearing out throats on the weekend.
Well, that's what makes you the versatile actor that you are. Here's the Wolf brand chili, which is a real thing. There's a real brand. We don't make these things up, folks.
This is a really good sequence.
Now this is another scene that was in the previous video transfers of this movie, which were done in 1980, without anybody asking me. They decided that all these colors were too bright and that they didn't look normal enough. So they went back and they made the entire picture look sort of grayish brown. And all of the complicated lighting and colored gels and stuff that we used all sort of looked really crappy. And this is actually the first time the pictures looked anything like it did in theaters.
And you remember the sound that made
Yeah.
bitter? Ooh.
Yeah. Sound effects.
You always have great sound effects.
Well, sound effects are very important. Sound effects and music. I mean, it's sort of post-production that people sort of forget about how important it is to a movie.
Fella, those are real silver. I gotta check in with a jeweler to find out what to charge.
Bill me.
Crazy fuck.
I gotta use your phone. Jesus Christ, what happened in here? Stop.
Hello.
Now, should we talk about how you did this shot? The
Well, we can. Yeah, sure. We should talk about it. No, we can talk about it because they've already seen it.
All right,
Anybody who's watching this movie for the first time and listening to this is making a big mistake.
All right. So after they cover Belinda up, and
Well,
Dee walks away.
the idea is supposed to be that when she comes back, it's not her under there anymore at all. It's Eddie. So of course, what we would have to work out was a way to move over the gurney with the camera, then pull the gurney away,
and
switch
I'm
people.
furiously jumping on it now.
And
cover it up.
of course we had to take out all the soundtrack, and I think we probably ended up looping this piece to cover it up. And then the idea would be that supposedly it's a surprise that when we come back.
Now you asked Dee to back up 12 feet, which I think takes a terrific actress to do, to back straight up like that 12 feet.
Well, the only problem is that the way that the scene ended
Thank you.
The way that the scene ended up being cut, it didn't have to be you. It could have been her because it's so dark.
Yeah.
But we were young and ambitious in those days.
And clearly beautiful.
Well, you certainly were.
Look at that. I like
It's that Brad Pitt quality there.
I like Mount St. Helens in the middle of my forehead, too.
I thought that was your third eye.
It's a pineal gland or something.
Really? Hey, do you have my Clearasil, young lady?
Well, you're really, really, really creepy and disgusting in this scene.
Yes, this is something I will not let my children see.
Now, did the contacts bother your eyes?
Yes,
Yeah.
terribly.
I know.
They did. I could
Really
barely,
irritating.
I could barely see her at all through those lenses.
Now here comes a nice piece of good taste.
Yes,
Distracting.
The piece of my mind.
Now
scene.
this was
Now that's
done
not Bob. That's a.
after. I didn't ever get to see this.
No, that's true. We added that when we were shooting Bob's.
You just told me sort of what to react to
Yeah.
in this whole
Well, the
scene.
problem with this whole scene was that all Bob's stuff was shot afterward, and Dee was. In fact, we shot you twice. We shot you once and told you what you were supposed to be seeing, and then we cut it together and it wasn't right because you weren't really looking at the real things. So then we got some photos, and we shot that scene again. There's some of those reactions again.
I don't remember
It's true.
that.
It's true. It's true. Now this is Bob with bladders on.
They were condoms actually, and the tubes came out of the back of my head, and the wig hid them.
And that's a fake hand. And sometimes we would have to actually wait almost an entire day for Bob to be able to come back downstairs ready to do this stuff because it took so long to put the makeup on.
It was a great transformation.
Oh, it was incredible.
My recollection was it took about 4.5 hours for the face alone, and then when we did the chest from the neck down, took another 4.5 hours of application.
It was very time-consuming, and there was a lot of people falling asleep and reading the paper and reading War and Peace and things in between the shots.
And the sound effects.
The sound effects help immensely, and the music helps immensely. Now Bob is gone completely.
We're mechanical.
And now these are mechanical heads.
And Joe was talking me through all this.
Exactly.
Which I remember.
Well, which is I had to do this.
That's what I remember.
I've had to do this numerous times, talking people into reacting to things that they can't see.
He was on a stepladder.
It's very difficult, and I've done it. I've never gotten good at it. It's just really a hard thing to do. Because it's so hard for an actor to just take your word for what it is that they're supposedly seeing, because it's so.
Well, especially in a scene like.
And you're supposed to be so intense.
Even if
well, me
was,
especially when my voice, but it's supposed to be such an intense scene, and the feeling always is, well, geez, this is ludicrous that I'm doing this, and to try to be able to attack a scene like this with any kind of conviction is, I think, one of the most difficult things an actor has to do.
But wasn't this one of the first times that it was actually done on the transformation? Was done on screen.
Well, this was probably the most extensive transformation that had been done up to that time, but also because of the fact that it was done very late. It was like the last thing we shot, these scenes. And we cut them together. We never really ever got a chance to preview the picture with this scene in it and figure out how long to make it, how short to make it. And as a result, the movie stops for this. I mean, it's the scene that made the movie a lot of money, but it's also a showstopper. This is the scene that Pauline and Cale said that their mouths were, their noses were growing like locomotives.
This, of course, is a series of heads.
It's a series of different heads with lots of KY jelly on it, and shot at different speeds because you never knew which speed was going to look right. And in fact, sometimes the motors would jerk and things would pop, and those were actually mistakes because originally the idea was that this was all going to be a very smooth transition. But when the sound effects people put bone crunches and pops on them, it made it seem even more unpleasant. The problem with this scene was that because it was so long, we never really knew whether it was any good. So when we were editing it, there were a bunch of kids down the hall shooting a commercial, and we brought him in and we showed the kid the scene, and we watched it for a while. And watched it, and he says, "How come she don't run away?" And I said, "'Cause it's a movie."
Because she's petrified.
But of course it was.
She's trapped in the corner.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, it is a question that
she's frozen.
Come on out of there now, miss. We've been waiting for you.
And this is.
I remember.
This is Westlake Village. The reason it looks so pretty is because dawn is coming, and we've been up all night.
God, we were there all night.
We were up all night, and
more fog.
And
more fog, Evo. This is definitely the more fog scene. And this also was a scene that we had originally. We had thought that maybe the idea was these people were so licentious and everything that we would have lots of nude people in this scene. So
this was not your idea.
It wasn't my idea, but it was. I agreed to it, so it was. So anyway, we started to shoot the scene, and we put all these sort of girls up there on the top, and they were like topless girls and stuff. And Dee came out, and she said, "Oh yeah, classy horror movie. That's what you told me it was going to be, a classy horror movie."
Well, as I remember, I even had it in my contract that there would be no nudity added other than what was in the script that I read.
Oh well, that could be. But that could be. Well, anyway, you were right.
And we had a huge discussion about it, and I remember Dan Blatt pulling in at 150 miles an hour at like 4 a.m. or something in the morning. Do you remember that? And he got out and he slammed the door, and he walked in and he was, "What's the?" And he took one look and he says, "It's stupid." It's stupid.
Well, it did look stupid. So
I mean, even the crew was laughing.
No, it was
Joe.
stupid.
Come on,
I agree.
When crew guys laugh
you're right.
at girls with bare boobs, you know you're in trouble. Okay.
So anyway, this was the night that the generator failed. And we had to go around and shoot like little inserts of people's faces by firelight to make up for it. And of course, it was a low-budget movie, and this was 3 pages we had to do in one shot. That's why it's like this. And I remember I was feeling particularly in despair that night, and I turned to John Carradine and I said, "Well, you know, John, this isn't going to be the best picture you were ever in." And he said, "Well, son, it isn't going to be the worst one either." And it sort of got me through the night. And I've often thought that on various sets
Joe,
of mine.
I didn't know you were going through. You were always so happy and even.
No, it was all a facade.
Well,
now this is a shot.
good
This is
one.
interesting. This is a shot. The last shot was a shot that we had to blow up. because sometimes when you make movies and you write scripts and you plan the scenes and you just don't really think about the practical realities of shooting them. And the idea here is supposed to be that Dee is being held captive by these people while they have this political discussion. Well, in one scene, she ended up sort of standing in the corner with nobody holding her or guarding her or whatever, and nobody noticed until we put the scene together and we had to blow up the shot to get rid of her, because of course if you're not thinking about it, then you just assume it. But if you see it, then that's different. And this whole second half of the scene was very difficult to stage, because when James Murtaugh picked up his gun to go off and shoot at Dennis Dugan, all of a sudden it was like, well, wait a minute, who's holding on to her? How come she doesn't run away? And it was one of those, oh my God, scenes where, what am I going to do now? But somehow you always manage to figure out a way to deflect those kind of concerns.
He's understandably upset about the loss of his hand.
Absolutely.
He wanted to be a cellist.
I remember it was "Can't Tame What's Wild,"
or something, or words to that effect.
Naturally, I love the smile.
Now this was that scene we added.
Oh, the Bright Boy scene.
This was one of the ones that was shot later.
This is known as my pizza face scene, or taco face among the.
Well, what can you tell us?
When you're on acid, right?
What can you tell us about this scene, Bob?
Well, I have many different colors of gelatin applied to my face and dried with a hairdryer. It took a long time and was very difficult to eat my lunch, is what I recall.
I always thought the makeup looked a little like I was a teenage Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's actually,
which is why we didn't see it too well in the movie.
I think for a gelatin makeup, it's really cool looking, and this is very popular among makeup circles, Joe. No matter what you think of it. I got a lot of questions from makeup guys about whether it was just gelatin and how it was applied.
I didn't say I didn't like it, Bob. I would have cut it out if I didn't like it. Now, you should mention that currently, whenever articles appear. There's an article that just appeared about you in Sci-Fi magazine.
Yes, they did an article on me, and instead of showing what I actually look like, they usually show a picture of me with either the pizza face, the gelatin face, or one of your other movies. They show a shot from Explorers when I have two arms coming out of my head.
But in this particular article, they happened to run two pictures of fake heads of Bob that weren't even him at all.
Oh, right.
And it just said Bob Picardo. So there's no picture of him at all in the article.
He could be anybody.
Heads. Well, he's the Lon Chaney of our day.
He does look like I was a teenage Frankenstein.
I don't. Well,
but he acts better.
If you had acid thrown in your face,
exactly.
Yes.
I remember, Bob, you came up to me like halfway through the picture and you said, "You know, Dee, I just want you to know I've done stage in New York."
My last credit was a lead on Broadway. In fact, I'm sitting there. They just put this makeup on me, and I'm looking very depressed, going, "Gee, I wonder if this was a good career move."
Well, look, you can see.
And Dennis Dugan walks by me and goes, "Bob, next time, read the script."
Crazy. Oh, I'm much more than that, bright boy. I'm much more. Here.
I think this is a pretty unsettling scene because mostly because of the way I look, and I sound a little like an FM disc jockey, as I recall. I have this very kind of mellow, quiet werewolf.
Well, actually, it's funny. When we make these pictures, there's a lot of levity on the set and everything, and you tend to not take them. I think people will take them all that seriously, but I actually had people come up to me after seeing this movie and say that they were seriously disturbed. That they thought the movie was really disturbing and frightening, and which is great. But we don't. Those of us who watch a lot of these pictures, you don't think about it that way. You just sort of. The idea with this movie was we were just trying to make a movie that was.
A good old
more
scary
of
movie.
A good old scary movie
with
for
humor.
A modern audience.
And had
with
a lot of humor.
Well, which I think is important, because if you don't give people humor, then they will find it, because you've got absurd situations, and no matter how seriously you take them, there's no doubt about it that it's not real.
Don't come any closer.
In that last scene, by the way, they had an air bladder on my neck that whenever they inflated it, it completely cut off my air supply. Couldn't breathe at all.
But you're not complaining.
No. I do it again in a minute.
Sure. Got a lot of stunt pay too, didn't you?
I remember, what was it, James's line here? Silver bullet in my ass. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking low budget. Do you remember we used to pick up honey baked hams and bring them for the cruise so we'd all have stuff
But
to
it
eat
fostered a certain camaraderie. I was like,
Oh, you bet
it
it
was
did.
a great camaraderie.
You bet it did. We had, everybody was like
Here
a
it
big
comes.
family.
Now this is essentially a pretty silly scene, but what's interesting about it is that although it's funny, it's still pretty creepy.
Mm-hmm.
You should also explain to the audience it's very hard for the actors to speak with those plastic teeth in their
Oh,
mouth.
it's extremely
It's
difficult.
very-
And what's funny is that we didn't end up looping any of that.
No, it's, to say an S sound, silver bullet my ass, all those S's
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
plastic
Yeah,
teeth in,
that's what it
really
means.
defines your technique, I think.
And you know, it had to be pretty good. They've made how many sequels? 6?
They've made quite a number of sequels.
Yeah.
None of which are up to the original.
Well, that's not unusual, though. And in one of them, now in this version, by the time John Sayles had reworked the script, this had become quite far afield from the plot of the original book. Although it's basically the characters are the same, but I think the adding of the werewolf coven or whatever it is, so it kind of changed that. And so when they went to make the sequel, they couldn't make a sequel to the book because we hadn't shot really the book yet. So I think Howling 3 or 4 is actually the book. One of them is called The Howling something or other, The Original Nightmare, and it's actually we ended up departing from it so much that they were actually able to go back and make a whole other movie out of the book.
Now, do you think that today you could make the same film for the same amount of money?
Well, not for the same amount of money. That was John Carradine's fake head, by the way, that last piece there.
Did anyone ever ask you the question that they're transforming inside so much faster than I transform in the scene prior when you see the whole thing? All of a sudden the hands are...
Well, no,
there's a
nobody
fire
ever
going
asked that question until you.
Besides,
Thank you. Now they'll be asking it again. That was John again. That's supposed to be Elizabeth.
Now, you were doing it for show to
Well,
scare the girl.
these were actually
They're in a
actually
hurry.
all added. These
I was
shots.
doing it as a prelude to romance. It was sort of
Exactly.
my-
That's what I was going to say.
foreplay.
It was foreplay.
Now some of these fire shots are from Zabriskie Point.
Really?
Yeah.
You stole them?
Well, no, we bought them. We bought them. They're in scope though, because you can tell the perspective's a little different. These were all added later. All these shots, Gary Graver shot this stuff. This is from the Zabriskie Point, and this is one of the shots that we shot when the generator was down.
When we used
And also there were some stop motion werewolves in that scene,
now
which we edited out, much to the chagrin
This
of
is where
Dave
you
Allen.
freaked out when the gun
this
went
is this.
Now this was all shot on a stage,
off. Right.
and
I got a real thing about guns.
we had only one werewolf suit, and the idea was to try to make it look like we had a lot of werewolves later in the scene. So
Did we ever find out who put that?
I'm sure it was Rob Bottin. Who else? What other mischief?
Dennis.
What other? Oh, Dennis might
who
have
did
done it.
what?
Oh, Dennis might
That
have
put the
done it. When he
blank
loaded
in
the gun.
Oh, 'cause
during
it was supposed
rehearsal.
to be on, yeah, it wasn't supposed to
After
be
we'd
loaded.
given this.
Now this
big
is all
speech
done
about-
called a poor man's process. That's the car's never moving and you blow smoke past it, and it often looks better than the real thing. And here was Slim Pickens' last night of shooting, which he spent mostly in his trailer waiting for us. Such a sweet guy, and I just wish I had more time to talk to him. This is all shot out in Lake. It's empty now.
Like empty.
Where they used to shoot Wonder Woman. What the heck?
Oh.
Yes. I shot my first picture there. No, it's one of those lakes in Hollywood.
Now was that us? Did we do that?
That's not you. That's the stunt
no, those
people.
were stunt people.
Oh, see.
This is you back on the stage again.
I didn't think that she ran like me. but
And the
I
idea,
didn't
this was sort of like the them shot. It was like you do your giant ant kind of thing. And this scene is mainly faked 100 ways to make it look like there is more than one
You
werewolf.
only had one suit.
We only had one
But
suit.
you had extra hands.
We had extra hands and another head. But the head and the head that we had was actually all that was built originally. We didn't have any of these suits. We just had the head and the hands.
I remember. I think I felt
This
like
was
I
very intense to shoot.
Screamed for about 4 hours.
It was. This was a really tough thing to piece together. Mark Goldblatt really did a lot of this. But it's
Or
sort of
editing,
it's all editing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like making people think things happen that don't really happen because you happen to have a good editor and a lot of shots.
Oh, there
After
it is.
all this, she gets
She
bit.
still gets
Now,
bit.
that was me, but
That was supposed to be you.
it's supposed to be me.
Yeah.
And
Because
you see
you've
my
been a werewolf.
tattoo, but it's so dark in there.
You do. That's right.
See, we see that she looks in the back
and sees
that
my
it's
arm, right,
his
with a tattoo on it.
I never had anybody say whose tattoo.
Oh,
was
there it is. Yeah, okay. Gee, I saw it really clear. This
well, that's because I spent a fortune trying to make this look good.
Gee.
And that's the last, all that's left of the stop motion werewolves. It's just one scene, and
that was a good one.
Well, we sort of had it's half a dissolve, and I just never thought that they matched the movements of the other werewolves, and so we didn't use it.
If you're done, Fran, thanks a lot.
This is the Bambi werewolf, right?
Yes.
The one
that was
we called the Bambi.
The Bambi werewolf, the nice werewolf, the D werewolf. Yeah.
Well, and
if you became a werewolf, that's what you would look like, a Pekingese.
We had this discussion. Do you remember that discussion?
Yeah.
Because originally you didn't see me turn into a werewolf.
No.
And when you
We
showed
went
it
back,
to people,
right, they said
they wanted
to see it.
But yeah, she's fought so hard against, because she shouldn't look like the rest.
Shouldn't look like the rest of them, and so that's why we made
she
her
was
look.
getting the big buck. She got the gold eyes too, if I remember right.
This is not a bad scene. Ridley
not.
Scott likes this picture. I was told. He's very fond of
He
it.
does.
Very
That's why-
fond of the end of it.
That's why he cast me in Legend, was because he was a fan of the Howling.
And that's why I guess how Rob got his
I
job.
played another beautiful character. In,
Covered completely, so that even
humpback
your own mother wouldn't know you.
Now, Joe, do you use my real scream?
Yes.
In this,
that's
and
your real
echo
scream.
it?
Yeah, that's your scream.
A struggle between what is kind and peaceful in our natures and what is cruel and violent.
What the hell is this, an
That
editorial?
choice is our birthright as humans.
considering how competitive the on-camera newswoman world is, it would probably help to have a little.
I think our ratings would go through the roof.
Don't you think?
No.
This is her. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take
That's
it
right.
anymore scene.
That's right.
And old Jim, I remember him leaving the set. Holy.
He only says "holy" in the TV version.
Oh.
He is quite funny in the movie.
He is.
He really is.
He's become a pitchman now.
Something in between. Monstrous mutations whose violence.
I haven't had enough parts for newscasters in movies, or I would have used them again. And the bald guy in the foreground, who's the production manager, he gets a bunch of close-ups. And the guy next to him is the real technical director of the station, who, because it's always better to try to find extras and things with people who know what they're doing.
Golden eyes.
Don't you go to an Alpo commercial or something?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty tasteless.
Now this was interesting because this had to be all shot in huge close-ups because we didn't have any set.
What is this?
Wow!
What are you kids watching?
The newsley's turned into a werewolf.
Oh boy.
La mujer se cambió en un lobo. Hijo.
Isn't she sweet?
It's like Beauty and the
That
Beast.
wasn't
You just
me
want to take
either.
her home and feed her apple?
Beauty and the Beast.
Who did that? Who was that under that?
I don't think it's a real person. It's a mechanical head.
Oh,
We
is
shot
it
this
all?
in the editing room the night before we mixed the movie.
Oh my God.
And this, I think, is John Davison's dog. I think we shot
Now
this.
this is your idea. This is
Well,
totally
it's
your
kind of not in
humor.
very good taste, I guess, but
Oh, it's hysterical.
I sort of like it. And this is a scene where the phone kept ringing during the scene, and John Hora would just knock it off, and we took the phone out. We actually only did this one take.
Doesn't mean it wasn't real. Hey, Ernie, put a pepper steak on for me, will you? And a hamburger for the lady.
How do you want that?
How you want it, honey?
Rare.
It was a fun film.
The hamburger.
We had a
Yeah,
good
and it
time.
holds
We
up
worked
really well.
hard. We really worked hard, but we had a good time. And it was
Well,
a
no, we
good
did have a
group
good
of
time, and
people.
it's one of my favorite pictures.
R. William Bill.
Well, see, we had to put. I didn't want people to not get the joke. Damn it,
Oh God.
But all these other guys, Charlie Barton and Jerry Warren, and all these guys are all the names of guys who directed werewolf pictures. And Walter Paisley is the name of the character that Dick Miller played in Bucket of Blood. and like that.
No, it was hard work, but it was a fun time. You know, it was really nice.
We were all young. And
We were just starting out, and we didn't know how hard it was.
No, exactly.
Working 18 hours a day meant nothing.
Well, but also, you know, the atmosphere, they really left us totally alone.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody
Wasn't it
came
a-
in, except
No
for the
studio
first day's
control.
dailies when Bob Ramey, who was the head of the company, said to me, "Is this a horror picture or a comedy?"
Oh.
And I said, "It's a horror picture." "Oh, okay." And then it was fine after that. And then they left us alone, and nobody came and told me how to cut it or anything. And we had a
Yeah,
preview.
and Bob Ramey was great about the whole thing.
He was great, but that's also because Bob's attention span was very short. He would like, "How's things going?" "Good, fine." He wanted to know it was good, and then he'd go off and do something else. But we had a preview in Las Vegas, and it was the worst sound and picture I've ever seen.
Doesn't that kill you?
It was just so awful, but they
Well, they
loved
just
the movie, and they didn't. And when you make a picture like this, or Gremlins, or a movie where you have to buy a lot of sort of, you know, Valderol in order to get the plot, you find that the audience wants to be entertained. They want to like the movie, and unless you make big mistakes and confuse them or bore them, that they'll buy the story. You know, as long as you don't go too far afield. I've always liked it when movies had a little something extra at the end of the credits for people, so that if they actually sit still through the entire picture, they get a little joke, whether it's a joke in the credit crawl or whether it's a little added thing at the end of the picture. John Hughes does a lot of this now. Ferris Bueller has a great joke at the end. At the end of this picture, there's a little admonition from Maria Svenskaya about, you know, for the rest of you people when you watch this movie, about making sure you don't turn into a werewolf. So I guess that's it, and thanks for listening.